Dan,
Hey.
welcome back.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm good, yeah. Not too bad. It's nice to be back with the boys.
Nice for you to be back.
Nice to have you back, yeah.
We're caffeinated
Yeah.
And hydrated.
and hydrated.
Yeah, probably
Fed.
overly caffeinated, to be honest. But
Yeah, we are overly yeah.
The ratio's off.
The ratio's a bit off, but it's all good.
we'll try.
We're hopefully back for some meaningful conversations.
Yeah, be good. Looking forward to it.
Me too. We were going to talk in this one a little bit about tech.
Cool.
I know that technology is a big part of the work that you do.
Yeah.
Or integrated into what you do.
Becoming more so, yeah.
And I guess with some coaches, gymnastics, technical coaches, it's probably not integrated at all. Or maybe it's just like, get your iPad out and film something.
Yeah.
Very generic, yeah.
Yeah,
Video
very generic
analysis.
stuff. But we had a little bit of chat off air about what that's going to look like. I guess with AI in particular as well, which is probably scaring a lot of people at the minute as to how AI will integrate into everyday life. I'm a big fan of some of the things that it does here for the business, which is amazing. But yeah, what about your perspective from as a coach, obviously with the strength and conditioning work?
Tech's always been used, really. I guess it, like you said, like anything, it's sort of progressed. So initially, it wasn't. When I first started, there wasn't any tech. We used to have a jump mat, like just a mat you jumped on it to tell you how high you jumped. And that's obviously, if you think about it, progressed from there to you now have force plates where you jump on it and it tells you how high you jumped along with 24 of the metrics of one jump, you know. And so from like that sort of tech side, from like a diagnostics monitoring point of view, I guess it's maybe led to S&C coaches being able to be a bit more prescriptive because they can kind of actually see what you needed to work on. Where before, I guess people would argue you're using your intuition really well, where now obviously you can be really prescriptive and then use your intuition somewhere else. So that's probably been the biggest change, because that's just become very much the norm now. Outside of gymnastics and other sports, you go anywhere and there's a set of plates in the gym. Yeah, and people are doing all sorts
collected.
Yeah, and I think when it first came around, everyone got a little bit excited and probably almost did too much and collected too much data and didn't do anything with it. Yeah. Probably turned a lot of coaches off from it as well because of it, because it was seen as a bit of a pain. But I think, I might be biased, but maybe it's swinging back the other way, where actually, because everyone's not getting hammered with as much data now and it's more meaningful, actually the coach is like, hang on a minute, this is really starting to enhance my athletes and allow me to coach better. I
guess part of that is probably choosing what the key data is that you really want to focus on, because you could focus on like 20 different things. If you go, actually our 3 key metrics are going to be these 3. And if we just focus on getting like those numbers up, for example, or those numbers down, then that's going to be indicative of the fact that we're on the right journey.
Yeah, it shows us X, Y, Z.
Yeah, and the other 17 metrics are good, but actually these are the 3 that are most important and carry the best bang for the buck.
Yeah, I would say so. So that tech side, in terms of like the actual equipment we're using, we're monitoring velocity of movement now in a barbell. Again, that's probably just standard of, prescribing lower weight and actually prescribing a velocity as opposed to like the actual weight or tonnage lifted.
You say velocity, how fast the barbell's moving.
Literally.
And then that will tell you how close technically they could be to their 1 rep max, for example.
Yeah.
Moving rapidly, then you're like, well, you've got loads more in you.
Yeah. Or I want you to move rapidly. I need you to hit around this much.
Yeah. Okay.
And you can be more prescriptive from that side. So then you're actually truly working RFD, so like rate of force development. So it's interesting, but it's gone from, a big unit that you had to strap around the bar to now it's like a band that you push on a barbell.
Goes around the bar,
It's nuts. So like when it first starts, and it's we're not even talking like 10 years probably. It's like there's something called an output now, and you just put it around an ankle and they jump, and it tells you. It's just every time. I think you've just got to be quite selective, because you could end up with
just lost loads of stuff. I think in terms of the technology also improving in terms of like the size of it and how quick it is to set up. I think when I was a gymnast and we used to do testing for that type of stuff, and it was like, oh, you have to jump on this big play, it takes ages to set up, and then you'd say, oh, why are we doing that? Oh, we're just collecting data. So the approach for the athlete has also changed. So now, like you're saying, you're using the data, it takes 5 minutes to set up rather than taking 20 minutes. So you feel like you're not taking time away from training and that type of stuff. I think that's helped a lot.
Yeah. It's so, you touched on a good point there as well, of like, I think people realise the athletes are actually interested. It's not like, just collecting data. It's like your data.
Yeah.
So what?
Yeah.
So like I'll my older athletes, I would say, want to know, and actually they understand it as well, because we spend a bit of time like saying like, this is what it shows. This is maybe how it's affecting you.
Yeah, this is why we're doing all this work. It's for this.
Yeah. Or like,
reason. Yeah.
this has gone down, but don't panic because actually we want it.
It's supposed.
We need you here at this point.
Yeah.
And we're around competitions at the moment, and we had the very similar conversation with an athlete of like, you're holding really well and you're really fatigued, and it's like, what's going to happen when we freshen you up, you know?
Yeah.
But they're like, they know that. They're like, that's really good. So it's can sometimes reinforce what they're feeling or what the coaches are telling them as well. Oh,
That's so useful. Yeah.
Yeah, it tells the story, but the coaches are normally saying something similar as well. It maybe just helps you support
Just
that
affirmation
to that as well.
Oh, yeah.
Like you said, the beauty of the development of tech is things tend to start big, bulky, heavy, inconvenient, and then like you mentioned there, now it's like a tiny little gadget that you just clip on somewhere, and it's it becomes a lot more accessible and cheaper. Tech starts off being very expensive, then 2, 5, 10 years later, it's actually a lot.
Yeah,
it's a lot cheaper and accessible now. So every club could be having some of these things,
and it's not as intrusive.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
do you know what I mean? I think that was the word I was looking for. It's not as intrusive
it's
into your everyday training session.
Yeah, faster.
Yeah,
Tech does it for you. You're not having to like plug it into an Excel spreadsheet. They jump, it goes straight on the system. It tells you how much they've gone up by. So you need, like, for someone who's not like numerically like unbelievable, it's great for me because you can look and still get all of that data.
Yeah.
You know, where some other S&C coaches will pull that to bits and do other amazing things with it. But for me, it's just a tool that allows me to make sure that we're improving physically, sort of holds you accountable a little bit as well.
That's the thing. It's a tool. Technology is there as a tool. It doesn't necessarily need to be used. That tool doesn't need to be used all the time.
No.
But it's there if you need it.
Yeah.
Do you, at the same time, miss just be like going into a gym and there's no tech and it's just athletes, coaches, and like
just that like
just gritty.
Yeah.
Just get to work.
Yeah. Just back to that when I first started at uni stuff, which was just a talented group of athletes, and there was a bit of tech, but not too much. And it was about just trying to get them from here to here and competing week in, week out. And it was a gritty environment.
And your coaching eye, right? Because you're using your coaching eye.
Yeah.
I find that like the iPads and stuff can come out just a bit too often now.
Yeah.
And actually I find that, so of course the replay stuff is going to be really key and useful. There are some cases where actually I think it's counterproductive. I just think like let's let the athlete feel it, don't let them see it, they don't need to see it. And some athletes that they don't benefit from seeing it actually gets in their head, or they have quite a negative response from it, and it's like every now and then just how about we just go on feeling,
just give it a go.
We coach, we go on feeling. We work on cues, we work on our feedback and our language and descriptions, and I think that's really quite a useful thing to do. Now, I'm not saying that, I'm a massive believer in using video analysis at the right time, but it
goes back to knowing your athlete.
Yeah, and it's a tool. It's a tool that you use. And
some of them just can't see it.
Yeah.
Or envision it. You have to show them.
Absolutely.
So, but then, don't get lost in it.
Yeah, that don't get lost in it. Don't
too much.
And also, it can ruin the efficiency of training. Yeah, I've seen like
the flow of
the flow of it.
Yeah,
clunky.
Yeah,
everything is like, right, do a rep, come over here, watch it. I'll explain, and then like go back, and it's like no, just let them get out of the pit and walk back.
Yeah,
you use your eyes.
Use your eyes. Let them feel. Like try and just connect with the movement as opposed to everything's got to be through the screen. Like again, it's
we've had it with young S&C coaches coming through as well that are coming through at like a staggering rate, and they're unbelievable with the tech stuff. They're probably picking it up probably faster than some people who've been in it longer. But there's certain times where you're looking at it being like, I think actually just being in that environment, like coaching and just spotting things and making changes and trying to make changes faster. And just being able to like sit yourself with a group of athletes rather than having to rely on something else, I think is actually, it's not lacking because I think they're doing it and I think people are aware now, but you were seeing it was becoming a bit of an issue. So almost like really invested in one side, and it's like you still got to coach that. They got to like you and like they care about data athletes, but I'll tell you one thing they care about a lot more is like sort of training and performing. So it's like that's all they want you to improve. So
and they could leave a session feeling really good without using video. So okay, it might not be perfect, but they might not need to see all the imperfections all the time. So it's like because that's what tends to happen when you slow stuff down. It's like for a young athlete, you might be focusing on something good, but all they're going to see is, oh my goodness, my knees are really sad.
No matter what.
Oh my God. We have it all the time. You put it in front of them and they're just negative straight away. And you're like, look, I hear you.
Yeah,
but
that's not what we were looking at.
This is the bit that we're focusing on, and it can be quite difficult for them, I think, to separate that sometimes.
Yeah.
What do you think it could look like in the world of gymnastics then, without it becoming a detriment, as in like the AI tracking or any of these things that you've just spoken about in the world of SNC? We don't really have that at all. And yet we are aware of how many impacts per week they're doing in the build up to a competition, but it's guesswork.
Yeah. Well, from my side, we've just integrated it into just part of the day when I'm in. Obviously, mine's a bit different because I float in and out of places, but when I'm in, they'll come in and warm up, and then during the warm up, they come and do their data that is for their monitoring purposes for fatigue, and then like within that, we'll also do some other specific things that we want to look at. And
what does that look like? Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
The fatigue.
So they'll it can literally be like, I'll come in, we'll get them going with the warm up, I'll coach it, plate goes in, and then they literally come over, stand on the plate, it spins until it goes green. They do 3 jumps. So 3 counter movement jumps usually is what we're using.
Force plate,
yeah. And then we basically look at 2 metrics. So we look at a peak power and we look at like an impulse. So basically, how much are you producing? How quickly are you producing it? Because you can produce very little, but quite quickly. We kind of need a bit of both. And then we sort of make sure that there's no fatigue. We sort of have a 10% rule. So if anything is below 10%, it usually becomes a conversation. Sort of within that threshold, as long as they're not exhibiting anything else, we sort of leave it and just put it down to training fatigue, stress, life.
Sorry, for the benefit of the listeners that might not be as familiar, when you say 10%, you mean 10% off their normal data.
Off their average. Yeah.
So if they are 15% less than their jump height, then that's a red flag.
Yeah, it's a conversation.
Okay. Yeah.
And then that's, again, comes back into that side of like, once it is over that, what are you doing? But that's how it looks like. But the battery I use is pretty simple. It's just jump profiling. So we do some squat jumping, which is non-elastic jumping. So it looks at your force output. We do that counter movement jump, which is basically a squat jump. So there's like a bounce effect out of it. So that's more your stretch shortening cycle. We do a right left. So we compare jumping on your right leg compared to your left leg. Again, we're looking for more of a symmetry thing with that 10% rule again. And then we do like an RSI jump, so like a reactive strength index, which just means how stiff are you. It's a drop jump. So you step off a block, you do a rebound, you try and jump as high as you can, as fast off the floor as you can. And it gives us a reading. And again, that's quite sensitive to fatigue. It's also quite sensitive to performance as well. So if someone's freshening up, their RSI sort of really improves. And obviously if someone's contact time is going down in their heights, getting better from gymnastics point of view, things are looking pretty good. Yeah.
Would you do this pre or post, like pulse raise? Is this first thing you do when they come in?
I like to just let them settle in and warm up rather than like being like, hey, let's analyze how you are inside, because you've got to have some conversations first. But yeah, like it's within the first 10, 15 minutes, ideally, because obviously once they start to do things, like if they've vaulted, your data's invalid. So they call it like data hygiene. So if I'm like one time taking it after they've like raised their pulse, one time after they've vaulted, one time after they've tumbled, your data is bouncing around. So just pick a time and do it. But I was trying to have the convo first. How are you? How are you feeling? How's your week been? Training? You can normally tell. Like I start walking over.
You're walking over like, oh. You're like, okay.
Yeah. No world records to go down.
How much that data matches up with what they've told you at the beginning of the session as well.
Gymnasts are pretty accurate about knowing how they feel. It's not very often you're like surprised. You're actually going to have a great. They know pretty well. And obviously it can be a load of things of stress and time of year and all sorts, really.
I guess also what's important there is not just because the data suggests one thing doesn't mean they can't have an effective training session. And so it's not a self-fulfilling prophecy of like, we've not scored very well today. And so then they're like, oh, looks like I'm not going to vault well. It's
the day off.
Actually.
So glad you said that.
Yeah, you might not be feeling great, but I had this recently when I was lined up with a national team. I said, this is day 3. You have permission to feel tired, but don't necessarily feel that is going to lead to you not having a very productive training day, because your body is capable of a lot, even when it's under fatigue. You might be mentally tired, but your body might be ready to go.
You can keep going.
So like, let's see what you can get out of today, and not write today off just because you might be coming in feeling a bit sore or a bit tired. And it was probably the best training day out of the whole camp. And I was like, well, there you go. Like, everyone came in tired, and everyone delivered an incredible day. And so
I rolled the sleeves up.
That's it.
Like I was talking about a bit of grit again.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Let's be gritty, because this is, if you're going to be this level of athlete, you got to give 100% of what you've got on your tired days, right?
Yeah.
You might not be at 100%, but you can give 100%.
Very rarely.
So.
Yeah. And with data in front of you, that can be difficult, can't it? Because this is what's put me off with these like wearable trackers.
Right. Yep.
So you got the Whoop on.
Yeah.
I don't know how accurate they are. Some of them are really good, apparently. But if I see that I've had a bad night's sleep, because it tells you, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I'm going to be like, I've had a bad night's sleep.
Yeah.
And
if you've had a good night's sleep.
Yeah. I feel like I personally would be really reliant on that.
Yeah.
So I just don't.
I think
Yes, fair.
it depends on you as a person. So like using this as an example, I use the data to help me make decisions. It doesn't make the decision for me.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
It's just knowledge.
Yeah. So it's just another, like you say, it's a tool to help me then make decisions.
Yeah. I use an Apple Watch. I've been tracking sleep, but I'm trying to get to 7 hours a night.
Yeah.
And so it's like my measure of whether certain things are working is a sense of like, okay, how many hours have I hit last night or over the course of a week, what my average sleep was and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's the same thing. It's like, is me getting 7 hours actually a byproduct of other things?
Yeah.
So it's like my success measure.
Yeah.
I guess that's a good way of looking at data as well. Yeah. With AI, I think there's obviously a lot of AI benefits or opportunities, I think, with coaching. And one of them is just around how it can probably interpret the language that we're using as well with feedback. I don't know if anyone's doing this yet, but recording yourself, delivering a session, throwing that into AI and actually asking AI to, like, based on modern literature around positive feedback and or best use of language in coaching, analyze this training session, give it some context of who you're working with and what age group and stuff, and see what it comes out with. I mean, there's loads of opportunities like that.
That's a fascinating idea. Yeah.
And these things are just worth experimenting with, because like we here at NI Gymnastics, we're using AI quite extensively for just things that just speed up systems and processes.
Yeah, I bet.
How can it take a meeting with a client and give me like a summarized notes on that, and how can we recap a meeting and create a voice note from it straight away and give that to people that weren't present in the meeting to listen to, so they don't have to watch a whole hour Zoom meeting. They can actually get a 2.5 minute summary, which is AI generated as a voice note, like stuff. Cool. So there's things like that we here are using to just improve workflows.
Yeah.
But I mean, really, I guess the opportunities are endless with where we would want it to go in coaching and what that could potentially do in the future.
Yeah.
I mean, at the rate that it's improving and developing, it will probably be able to analyze body language and all sorts, if that is deemed to be useful.
This is it. Yeah. Can it track, body language? And I mean, technically, I suppose it could get to the point where it just can analyze the biomechanics of a movement.
I'm sure. Yeah. As we know, the systems are already being developed that are doing that from a judging perspective, aren't they? So when that eventually then trickles down into coaching. I think the most useful thing is the stuff around training volume.
Yeah.
But it's not there yet. I mean, interestingly, about a decade ago, we here at NI Gymnastics were in conversations with actually like a wearable device developer. Yeah. And we were looking at weaving the technology into leotards. And we went down that route for quite a while until I just realised that I just didn't have the budget to be able to fund the project. And it was because at that point, wearable wasn't what it is now. Yeah. Talking a decade ago, and lots happened in that time. Yeah. And so it was a really, I think, a forward-thinking thing, but too small as an organisation, even still now, to be able to chuck money into that. But
too early as well.
Probably too early.
Yeah, as well as time and place for it, isn't there?
Yeah, that's right.
We're there now.
And the key, what we want to do and measure, as I think one of you just mentioned earlier on, is like a rep isn't a rep in gymnastics. So like running a mile and is running a mile. Obviously, you've got some very easy things to track on that, and like how long did it take you to run a mile, and your average speed and stuff like that. And as I think we've probably discussed in a previous episode, one rep in gymnastics is not equal to another rep.
No.
Yeah.
Are you landing on a hard mat? Are you landing on a soft mat? Are you doing it from the floor? Or are you doing it from the trampoline? Are you doing a G skill? Are you doing a B skill? So it's like, until I think we can get to the stage of making it really efficient, so it's collecting the data for you at the touch of a single button, as opposed to like the disruption of training of walking around and right, I'm now going to write that down, or 5 buttons on an iPad.
Yeah,
I've done 1 rep of that, and it was not very good. And it's like, okay, that is great, but are you better off just training and having a coach that is intuitive and can manage workloads and is smart and intelligent and caring about the athletes? Like, until it is a no-brainer, I don't think it's going to be adopted.
No, I think you'd need a massive amount of support staff for that.
Yeah, and who's got the resources for that? I mean, at NGB level, you do, but that is still when you're in camps. Most are non-centralized clubs, so then they go back to their clubs, and then what? No more collecting data.
Yeah.
It's probably not useful to go, right, you're going to be here 1 day a month. We'll collect data. Sorry, 1 camp a month or every other month. So we'll collect data every couple of months of how you train, and then actually we're not collecting anything in between. It's just like, well,
got big gaps.
Yeah.
Maybe you can do something different when you come into this. So I think it's going to be amazing, but it's just not there yet, is it?
No.
No, I think we're looking at the next sort of decade. 10 years or so, but I'm fascinated to
see where it goes.
Yeah.
So here at NR Gymnastics, we're once again super proud to be partnered with Little Stars Leotards, who've been a fantastic partner for us over the years. Not only do they provide exceptional service for their customers, but they're a great team for us to work with, and they provide us a lot of value too. It's no surprise that so many clubs here in the UK, but also overseas, are making the switch to Little Stars Leotards for their service, but also the quality of leotards and clothing that they provide to the community. So if you're interested in checking out why they're such a great team to work with, visit littlestarsleotards.co.uk. And thanks again, Little Stars, for being such a fantastic brand partner.
As coaches, will you use that data to actually make decisions? So for example, in my head, I'm thinking of athlete wakes up, they have an app where it's like let's call it like a readiness app, where they put in what they did the previous day, how many hours sleep, how they feel, maybe what they ate, whatever it is. And it gives you a score of 1 to 10. It comes to your device as a coach, and then you make a decision on that day of, okay, well, now we might have to change because you're a 4 out of 10 instead of a 6 out of 10.
Yeah. We've used wellness monitoring in the past. I've not used it in gymnastics, but with other teams, and it's basically like a Google form. You turn it into a widget on your phone, and then they wake up, and there's a couple of questions that are researched that you ask that sort of, when they're answered on a scale, it sort of does actually give you a good score for wellness. Usually to do with like your rest recovery, how your body feeling, aches, pains. But again, it just becomes a conversational tool, because you could collect they do the data in the morning, and then you collect it, and then you are just again looking for like a RAG rating, so like a red, amber, green, and you're just ready for the ones that have done it. However, if you work with athletes and they have to be reminded about it, you start to stumble into a bit of a problem of, they'll go like, okay, cool, and they'll just go like 6, 6, 6, 6. And then actually,
I'm okay.
Yeah, so if it's being used really well, it can be an amazing tool. But obviously, if it's then like you're trying to get it to roll, you're struggling. So it depends on the culture in which you're in. We were trying to do it with university athletes, and if I'm honest, I was more on the side of not doing it, because I probably understood their lifestyle issues a little bit more.
That's a very good point.
But we did try it, like that wellness monitoring, and it's done like throughout probably a lot of places now in terms of teams and clubs. But I think it's as part of a system of...
It's the integration again as well.
Yeah, like you said, it's not making the decision for you, but it's giving you enough... Well, it's giving you more data points. So you're like,
reference,
right. So, okay, body language of the gymnast doesn't look like they're ready to train. Initial conversation doesn't look like... they look tired, they sound a bit negative. The data here is suggesting the same. The jump data is not great, and it's like, well, all signs here are telling me that something's got to change today, so it might be...
10 routines. No,
might be what?
10 routines.
Might be 10 routines.
But that's the problem, isn't it? If you've arranged a control competition, for example, it's kind of irrespective of the data, isn't it? Like you might
sometimes
also feel this way when you turn up to the competition on a cold Sunday morning
Yeah.
first up on beat.
didn't
or
sleep
whatever
very
it
well.
was. You didn't sleep well because you were nervous.
Yeah.
No one
Or in a
needs more
hotel, not in your own bed.
Yeah,
all
sure.
those things.
And we could use it as
travel
a
terribly.
training
Yeah.
tool as well. But
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just it's a data set, isn't
Yeah.
it? So,
yeah, you would use it definitely.
Yeah.
We used some tech with I used to work with Fencer, GB Fencer, and we used to use tech called a Megawave, and it's pretty high level tech. It's cool, and she would put these sort of ECG pads on like her head, her chest, and her hands, and she'd have to lie down for 4 minutes in the morning and take a reading, and the data would come through. It was absolutely massive. And she nailed it because she was like nerdy in the sense of she was an engineer, so she was fully bought into doing this.
Yeah.
And she used to travel a lot to sort of like Dubai and to other places for her competition. And what we found was she was really struggling with traveling. Like, she was a great fencer, but when she traveled, she was a bad fencer, effectively, which isn't ideal when you're an international athlete. So what we started to do is actually have conversations around, like, what are you doing when you get there? When are you sleeping on the plane? Like, and what we could see is when we improved all of her lifestyle habits around
Around the travel.
around what we were doing, she was actually improving. And then we had one day, which is actually probably the only time where I actually think, if I could like pinpoint where I think data has made a difference to something, is she took the day of a comp, and it was just down, like just absolutely rock bottom. But we got it in the morning, so we put some things in place to like dig her out the hole. But like ASAP. So we had her basically go and do like some really like ballistic work with like a med ball.
Just to get her fired up.
Yeah.
Wake up.
And basically just to like fire the system up.
Yeah.
We paid the price on the other side of it because obviously you're almost tricking the body into increasing its output, but it gave her a shot at that comp.
For the comp.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it went okay.
Yeah, and you wouldn't have known.
She's never going to crush it, but yeah. And then obviously on the other side of it, but that's the one time really where the person, I was lucky, I had someone analysing the data where the person was like, it's absolutely in the toilet today and we need to do something otherwise. Like,
changes
she's literally at the back.
Yeah.
But it was really interesting because then it was like, we need to put something in place within the next half an hour because you're warming up in and out. Like, it's
Because that's like a perfect example of using the data, right?
Yeah.
Bang on.
Intervention.
Yeah.
I think analysing data as well, like actually doing the analysis on the data is probably where AI will be useful because there's so much collection of data.
Yeah.
Well, there's not that much in gymnastics essentially, but I mean for you guys, there's a lot.
Yeah.
As you probably know, we offer like a score profile template to our members in the Gymnastics Growth Academy where you input the scores and it kicks out loads of metrics and like reliability percentages and stuff. And like, none of that's AI based. It's just basic, spreadsheet formulas and stuff. But there will be AI tools and codes and snippets and things that can help to generate like really good analysis. Like, I don't know what the prompts would be and things, but I'm sure it either exists already or it could be developed quite easily.
Yeah, someone listening to this right now is probably thinking, right,
Probably someone listening to this
leotards.
already got it. Yeah, I know. Thinking the whole business on like,
launched a business.
It's all patent pending, by the way.
Do you think that the prompt thing is interesting because the inputs that you put into the AI is important as well?
yeah, it's the main thing. It's just the quality of the quality of the information. But
Yeah.
The one I've been using recently is emulate. They love the words, don't they? Emulate how a world-class so-and-so would do this.
right.
And it's a very different outcome to saying, how would someone do this?
Yeah.
You got to be really specific and
That's interesting.
it's really fascinating. Yeah.
So you're just playing around with the prompts.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think that's where it has to be for at the moment, is just having a tinker with this stuff of just
I would
seeing what works, seeing what you like. That's really interesting.
I wondered if the AI knew about the code of points, and it does. It's because it's on the internet. It's got it.
Okay, cool.
But I only got fed that information when I said, can you emulate how a world-class gymnastics coach in women's artistic, this specific, would use the current 2025 code of points like that. You really had to dig in. But then it spat out this amazing information.
Really?
Yeah.
In 2 minutes.
Yeah,
It's
literally
mad,
just
isn't
bang.
it? Mad.
It's the speed of it.
From an S&C point of view, do you use it for programming?
No.
Not at all.
No.
No.
Not yet. Well, I sit down with pen and paper.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
When I do my programming, and then it goes from pen and paper into a spreadsheet, and then sometimes into an app called Team Builder. But it all starts with It's just how I was taught.
Yeah.
And I kind of like it. I like the scribbling and making decisions, and then you look at it and you're like, I look like an absolute nutter. But this program looks really clean.
Yeah.
It's good.
But I like it. It's how I was taught. I was taught by two, like, I would say more on the traditional side of coaches up at Durham, like Luke Southgate and John Boyle, and they're still like that now. Some of the best coaches and programmers I know, and they still do it. I quite like it. I like that traditional.
There'll be a lot of people listening to this that have got no interest in AI, all the tools and the tech. And to be honest, at this stage, I wouldn't even say that they would be at a disadvantage in their coaching. I don't think it's not such an integral part of what we're doing. I'm sure at some point in the future it might become that if you don't do this, you're at a disadvantage. But
a disadvantage, but it's never going to threaten you as a coach.
No, but now I wouldn't say that if one coach is using AI to help with something and the other coach isn't. I would say there's far more important low-hanging fruit available for them
that
to
can make
achieve
a difference.
a performance advantage. And I always say that as coaches, we often look for the 1%, but actually for most coaches and clubs, there are far greater opportunities than 1% available. It's like they haven't got they're not even doing enough training volume on physical prep, so that's like a 20% advantage, let alone one. Or they might not have dialed in nutrition and recovery, so then that's another 20% advantage. It's like
workload management.
Workload management, talent ID, actually like working with the right athletes, just general coach development. Like the opportunities are huge, and so whilst 1% are great, it's actually better to focus on something more glaringly obvious, which can have the impact that you want. Versus chucking data into an AI developed spreadsheet to say that your kid's falling off beam too much. It's like I probably didn't need
two eyes.
I need to write see that in the script. Develop something, and it's like
I used to work with a rugby coach who was S&C wary is probably the nice way to put it. And he used to say basically it's 80% what you know is going to work and 20% an experiment. It's probably the only bit of advice I've taken from him. But like in terms of that's actually genuinely stuck with me. I think he was, and that's what probably made him wary. It was like just experimenting with my athletes, or like, and it's the same thing maybe with this tech AI thing. Is like be playing around with it, but make sure that you're doing the things that you know are actually
doing stuff, right?
Proven to increase performance. Like not like you said, drastically, not even a small amount. A super interesting topic though. It's super interesting. I'd like to come back in 5 years and have the same conversation.
Book it in, mate.
Come back and go, we were wrong. It's just so wrong.
But it won't be us sitting here.
We've all lost our jobs. It'll be holograms.
Some hologram cyborgs sitting here.
holograms
in 5 years. Hope so.
You'll be in the Maldives, mate. Just
feet up.
Oh dear, teleporting. It is interesting. But just on that topic of getting clubs and coaches to think about those opportunities as well, it's like not thinking about the next shiny object. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't think coaches tend to do that anyway.
No, I don't. You do.
But I think the culture is probably that they, and we've talked about this in the last episode, they just kind of do things the way that they've always done things, and it's like
it's actually the opposite, isn't it?
Yeah, how often you've just taken a step back and gone, actually, what is the obvious opportunity? How I like to frame this as a question to myself is, what would insert person's name do about this? So if they walked through the door thinking about a coach, like a well-established, well-respected coach that you admire, and you go, right, okay, what would that person do if they walked into my gym and would watch training, or if these athletes that I now coach were now coached by this person, insert world-class coach's name, how would they coach differently? And I find that to be a really useful question, because a lot of the time they would go, well, they would probably do this, they would probably do that, and they'd probably do this. And it's like, okay,
go and do that.
Yeah, like what? Just out of interest, why are you not doing that? So they might say, they'd be really detailed and precise about handstands and shaping, and they would do more work on flexibility, and they've got loads of attention to detail. I'm like, okay, what out of that could you not do yourself?
You're so aware of what you're already not doing.
And it's like the halo effect of going, but that's because they're this person. It's like, no, it's just a set of attitudes and behaviors.
They're just relentless about what they do. And
but I find that personally to be a useful question, and sometimes when I'm stuck on something, I'm like, what would they do? If I rang them up now and say, I've got this problem, what advice would they give me? And normally it's just,
answer it yourself.
I can answer it myself because I know what they would tell me to do.
I was going to say, is that something you ask yourself?
Yeah, I do, like all the time.
Really?
Yeah, and I don't often need to pick up the phone. And if I don't know, I pick up the phone.
Interesting.
But most of the time I find that just thinking about it from their perspective, knowing how they think,
Yeah, that's super interesting. Huh?
which takes a bit of emotion out of it.
Yeah.
So if this gymnast that I coach was actually coached by them,
Yeah.
like no doubt they'd get better, but why would that be?
Yeah.
What is part of their own, like we talk about like an algorithm. Like I think as coaches, we've all got an algorithm, which is essentially the way that we do everything. So it's like, how do we approach volume? What's our technical eye, and
your
like
systems.
what's their recipe? Call it recipe instead of algorithm. But I'm just interested to know what makes someone else's algorithm so much better than mine. Like how is it more efficient? How is it more refined?
Yeah.
What's in, what's out?
Yeah. Why do you get that outcome?
Why do you get
faster or better or sharper or
because it's never a level playing field. And I'm fascinated by that. I'm fascinated by, we make a lot of excuses, we as human beings, of like, oh, they've got that result because of this. And I go, okay, if you took those same gymnasts and you put them in the same conditions, exactly the same conditions. So let's say we take, a gymnast, let's call them Amy. And we take Amy and we give them a year with Coach A and a year with Coach B, and they've got the same training volume in the same gym with exactly the same conditions, but they're under different coaching. Like it's the coaching which is going to make the difference, right? And that's why it is never a level playing field.
Yeah.
And I'm fascinated by what the outcomes would be in those situations.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Rather than always thinking about
like
the conditions.
Yeah. I had a really interesting conversation with a coach this week about a similar thing where we were talking about approaches to workload. And he was saying, oh, they may do this on a Monday. And he said, that makes no sense for me.
Yeah.
Blah, blah. And I basically just went, otherwise sport would just be really boring. Because basically otherwise we would all just have the same prescription and then we would all just go up to competition and basically actually just find out who has the best athlete.
Yeah.
Where like actually the beauty is the coaching science bit of it, isn't it? Which is like you have to make decisions and you live and die by them in terms of performance.
Yeah.
It was really interesting because he was sort of saying like, it's not wrong that guy said that to do that on a Monday, but he's like, I just wouldn't do it. And I was just thinking, because it'd probably just be boring if we were all just doing
Doing the same thing. Yeah.
Because then you just rock up to comp going, well, I don't know. Like, sometimes you go to comp and you probably feel quite prepared because you've had opinions and decisions and tough ones or easy ones to make. But yeah, it's really interesting.
It's in our world as well, isn't it? Our world's really diverse in the way that you can approach it.
Hugely.
Take like a sprinter, for example. Like you could give Usain Bolt probably any coach and he would still be very good. It probably wasn't his sprint coach that made him the fastest man.
Yeah.
I don't know if I
probably
agree
helped.
with that.
But you're saying that if someone like Usain Bolt was to go and, visit a program or visit a coach that wasn't perhaps as good, he still wouldn't be exceptionally fast.
So if you had no coach, you think he'd still be the fastest?
Well, maybe he wouldn't get there in the first place, but could he potentially still be the fastest? Yeah.
I think so. This is interesting because it's understanding the variable is athlete or the coach. So I think that a lot of
That's a good question.
Yeah. Like say for example, I
hang on,
went
please.
and- sorry, yeah.
No, it's fine. I'm going to lose it. You're going to lose it in my head. Go. Okay. I'm setting this up.
You sat up.
So a lot of times I think a club can wait for the right athlete to walk through the door and then things change for them because the variable was the athlete and not the coaching or the program. So basically like you coach the same for 5 years and then the right athlete that fits that comes through the door and now it works. Nothing's changed apart from the athlete.
Yeah.
So in that case, the athlete
As in, like,
variable
the system hasn't changed.
Yeah. Coaching hasn't changed. Like the system hasn't changed. The program. The athlete was the variable that created the domino effect for everything to move on from there. And then, in contrary to that, you've got other environments where you've got the coaching is the variable. So actually, it doesn't matter. Like the athletes are always coming in, but the coaching is the big difference in terms of like there's progression in the coaching, progression in the system. So when so what you posed there and you're saying about Usain Bolt and that it doesn't matter, I find really fascinating because then you're saying there that the athlete is the variable because of his talent, and the coaching didn't matter.
It's not that it doesn't matter.
I know, but
because Usain Bolt has been beaten, not in his prime, but since. So perhaps that he wouldn't have got to that extreme level without the program. But put Usain Bolt, for example, into a a swimming program, even with the best swimming coach in the world, he probably wouldn't have beaten your best swimmer because he's just not predisposed that way.
Yeah, sure.
I might be wrong. This is just conjecture, but
he's a unicorn of an athlete.
That's right.
As well.
Yeah, there's that, right?
He's
Yeah.
literally
Yeah.
been the fastest man on the planet. I don't know.
yeah, maybe we're talking too much of an extreme level, but
Because there are some like legendary athletics coaches that like success leaves clues. As, you know, like you're looking at like a Dan Paff, Stuart McMillan.
Or the Altus team.
Try and get off that. Yeah. So, yeah. Type Dan at checkout. Well, no, you go down like sort of Charlie Francis, which is contentious because obviously for certain things, but again, produce legendary sprinters, and it's like they must have some sort of secret sauce as well, and some method and some thought process.
yeah, they have a system. They have a system, not just
and like
a one-time product.
yeah. And the other thing with Usain Bolt is like to deal with the personality of someone who is the fastest person in the world takes a lot. Because
That's where I was. So I think we've got to be careful of. So a lot of the decision making that someone like Usain Bolt's coach, for example, we can't just look at that and go the knowledge of the coach in terms of their sprinting expertise. We've got to look at and go, what decisions did that coach make with Usain Bolt on his journey, or how nurturing was he? What did he prevent from happening that we don't know because it never happens, whether that was injury or let's get off Usain as an example, but a coach will protect an athlete from making the wrong decisions based on a lot of stuff. Or maybe it's like, you shouldn't compete that. They're decisions that you don't see the impact of them because they are the correct decisions.
yeah.
So what I mean by that is because it goes to plan and this athlete doesn't get injured because of the decision a coach make, it just seems like
Smooth and easy.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, if you didn't make that decision, they did get injured, all of a sudden there's always tension.
Yeah.
And you get criticised for it.
Yeah.
You never get praise for decisions that you make which turn out well.
Really well.
Because everyone's just like,
You expect it.
you expect it all.
You're
It's
the
like,
best
are you
coach.
being
Yeah.
overprotective? And it's like, no, actually.
I don't believe that Usain Bolt's coach taught him to be fast. I believe he taught him to be faster.
Yeah. Of course.
Already fast,
Yeah.
obviously. If I went to visit Usain Bolt's coach, he wouldn't make me the fastest man on earth because it's not possible for me to do that.
It'd make you quicker.
It'd make you
me
faster. Yeah.
Definitely get you quicker.
But there's a thing there, and it's probably all of those little behind the scenes things that you never actually.
Because like you were saying before, in the context of gymnastics, a coach can have multiple athletes in the same system and it not work for
Absolutely.
Of course.
5 of them.
and then one
of
goes
them, yeah,
And what was the difference? The athlete.
Yeah.
exactly. It's not the coach.
Yeah, and because sometimes the question can be asked is who made the result? Is it the athlete or the coach? In terms of when did this journey hockey stick? And I don't mean it in a like
No.
either's fine.
It obviously has to still be a collaboration.
Yeah, of course, and they both are contributing massively. But sometimes that variable, so the right athlete walks through the door for that system. Maybe they've got more talent, or maybe, for example, they're like really fast twitch, and then they're very capable of performing higher level skills naturally, and that serves this program really well. And now it's this club's first exposure to a higher level of performance, and then the domino effect starts. That coach and club starts to get more exposure in those environments. More knowledge comes.
Something
you start
to look
connecting
up
more
to for the next athlete.
Yeah, exactly. The next level of athletes are looking up, and all of a sudden you've now got a program. You've not got a random athlete where the variable was the athlete. Now the coach has learned so much that the coaching is the variable, and now you've got a succession.
So it can change.
It can change. Yeah, absolutely, it can change. And normally it does when the club has their first athlete that helps them to make it.
That's the thing. Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
That is, and it's sometimes
Interesting.
now. What I don't think is the right thing to do is just to wait and just to go, right, at some point through these doors, an athlete will come and change our lives. It's like, that's not the approach to take, but ultimately that could organically happen.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, you upskill and you do whatever work you can. And, and you work on.
Go visit those environments.
Yeah, you visit the environments and you do all the proactive stuff, of course.
Yeah.
It's,
You then have to stay ahead of that athlete, don't you?
yeah, because another interesting question I always think is, if a potential Olympian walked through a door, could this environment manage it?
Foster that.
Like, would they foster and
That's
nurture
right,
it, or are they not in the right mindset?
Yeah.
Do they not have the skill set yet?
That's the counter to my argument, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because if a potential Olympian came into my club when I was 16, 17 into my group, I wouldn't have taken them anywhere, probably.
Yeah. And many coaches won't even have the
That's a good reflection.
but many coaches won't have the knowledge to even identify that they did have that level of potential. And again, that is fine because we've all been there and we've all been at that stage of going like, well, she's talented, but who knows what talent really looks like.
Yeah.
That was going to be my next question.
Exactly.
What does talent
Exactly.
look like?
Like how do you know
that
like?
someone is talented?
Yeah. And how do you know if they've got it?
Unquantifiable,
You
isn't
don't
it?
really.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very sport dependent as well, isn't it?
You get some real slow burners that end up being unbelievably successful, but were never particularly talented.
Yeah.
But if you're a stopwatch sport, and you can kind of quantify it a little bit faster.
Yeah.
It's a bit more black and white in front of you, but then it's not that black and white because you're trying to take that number and going, could this potentially come down to this? So when they're, and then that's where it's another interesting thing. But yeah, it is interesting, isn't it? It's what is a talent? For S&C coaches' lens, it's completely different because you're having the conversations with the coaches and they're prompting you. So then you like, all right, that person is the one to maybe
You paint a picture in your head based on the information.
Yeah. But then, there's just some obvious cases sometimes where you're doing physical prep and there is just one that stands out. It's maybe not the best gymnast, but definitely the best athlete in the group.
Yeah. They're good. Yeah.
And there's times where sometimes you do have that conversation where you're like, oh my God, so-and-so's unbelievable. And the coach goes, that's great. However,
This one.
unfortunately not the best gymnast.
For bars or something.
Yeah.
However, then I'm also looking at a 13-year-old going, that's probably okay because you're going to go into another sport and be great at it.
Probably.
Yeah.
Which is
great
what
foundation.
Which is what I've had in the past is a lot of female athletes I've coached that are like exceptional athletes. You ask them what they did when they were younger and they'll say gymnastics.
Yeah.
You'd be like, oh my God, you stand out. What did you do? Oh, I did gym for X, Y, and Z. And eventually just didn't do it because I actually wasn't a good gymnast. But
They still gave him the
she's
foundation.
an absolute freak athlete. It's something else.
Yeah.
It's a great foundation sport.
Yeah, that foundation.
Great
is,
foundation sport.
Yeah.
like a springboard into whatever they want to do, isn't it?
There's time for me yet then.
Yeah, you
Yes.
2025.
2020.
The year of the gymnast, isn't it?
Oh dear, good times. I've enjoyed this, guys.
Yeah, it's
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you.
Another great conversation.
It's good. Yeah.
Really,
nice.
appreciate it. And let's get one more in.
Yeah. See you again in 5 years.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Gymnastics Growth Show. Now, if you're an ambitious gymnastics coach with a hunger for self-improvement, check out my Gymnastics Growth Academy, where you'll find members from over 40 countries, all accessing my masterclasses, courses, templates, live community calls, exercise libraries, and so much more. It's a program that members have described as life-changing. So why don't you check it out for yourself? Head to gymnasticsgrowth.com to learn more. See you on the inside.